As you walk to the bus stop with your friend Jane, she suddenly takes off running, calling back, "First one there gets a window seat." That's not fair. Jane got a head start, you think, as you furiously run to catch up. When you finally get to the curb, you're ready to sprint across the crosswalk, but instead, the crossing guard holds up her stop sign, and you're stuck there with your newest frenemy, Jane. The crossing guard comes to stand next to you, allowing the cars to pass. Hi, I'm Cindy Robinson, a Level 3 Focused on Children competitor from Cookville High School FCCLA, and I am here to help you safely cross the street to continued friendship. Sometimes it's hard to figure out the best way to solve, or better yet, avoid conflict. This is why I chose to plan and conduct a child development project to teach the children in my community about conflict resolution. I identified this concern by evaluating my own experiences working with children at church and through my internship with the occupational therapist in the school system. In addition, I talked with my advisors and various people in my family who work with children to get their perspective. I also reached out to 6 different elementary school guidance counselors in Putnam County, asking them various questions about conflict resolution. One counselor who responded said she sees conflict arise mostly during unstructured times, such as car line, centers, recess, or bus line. She also stated that these are important life skills for children to learn, and she feels it would be beneficial for children to be taught conflict resolution before and throughout elementary school, so they have experience with the concept. Similarly, another counselor and previous preschool teacher said that conflict resolution skills help children feel independent and have confidence in themselves. She agreed that it is important to teach these skills at the youngest age possible, but especially in preschool as they prepare for kindergarten and are getting used to school and trying to make friends. Through personal experiences and those gained in my early childhood education courses, I've realized a lot of children struggle solving conflicts with their friends, as they usually just how to an adult. I wanted to equip children with the ability to at least try to solve conflicts by themselves in a healthy way. After examining the National Family and Consumer Science Standards in early childhood education, I was able to find justification for my project. FCS Standard 4.5 provides opportunities to demonstrate techniques for positive collaborative relationships with children. My project perfectly aligns with Substandard 4.5.4 to implement strategies for constructive and supportive interactions between children and families. Another reason I chose conflict resolution because I tend to be the peacemaker among my friends and family. I guess you could say I'm the crossing guard among them. Per the FCCLA planning process, once I had chosen my topic, I had to set a goal. My goal was to teach 3 to 5-year-old children in my community how to solve conflicts in healthy, effective ways that will pave the way to smooth relationships, not only now, but down the road. As I learned in my Life Skill Development class, preschool-aged children are beginning to grow out of the egocentric stage where they focus mainly on themselves and their needs. My hope is that my lesson could help children learn to respond better to others and not be self-centered. Next, I formed a plan. This consisted of researching strategies to implement in my lesson, developing lesson activities, gathering supplies for lesson activities, and coordinating times to visit early childhood environments to teach my lesson. Trying to diversify my audience, I chose to visit the 2 different age groups. I also spent time looking for developmentally appropriate activities and books that teach conflict resolution. For my activity, I chose to make a sorting game using clip art with 2 categories. Green light, appropriate things to do in solving conflict, which included things like sharing, talking, and listening to friends. And red light, inappropriate things to do when solving conflict, such as being mean or yelling at your friends. This connects to the kindergarten standard K.ETS 1.01b. Describe objects accurately and just draw or label pictures. The final stage of forming a plan was to schedule time to teach my lessons. I would also read a book aloud for story time. After searching for appropriate titles, I settled on Talk and Work It Out by Cherry J. Mayers. This book teaches a great story. It tells the story of a boy who gets in a conflict over a ball with a classmate as he works through his problems. I also created cards with the steps of conflict resolution on them. Card 1 had step 1, calm down, and step 2, talk and listen to friends involved. The second card had the 3rd step, find a solution, and if necessary, ask an adult. The 3rd step directly aligns with preschool approaches to learning standard, which states children must identify a problem and attempt multiple ways to solve it, with or without assistance. With the help of my advisors, I scheduled my first lesson at Little Sprouts Preschool on Wednesday, January 13th, and another at Jerry Whitson Elementary School on Friday, January 15th, in their kindergarten classroom. Per the FCCLA planning process, my next step was act, and I was on the highway to do so. I started my lesson at Little Sprouts by introducing myself and explaining what conflicts are, a disagreement between two or more people. Next, I asked the children if they've ever had conflicts with teachers and friends at school, or with siblings and parents at home. Most of the children confirmed that the majority of their conflicts is with their peers and siblings. Next, I explained why I was there, to teach them how to solve these conflicts. Next, I walked through the steps of conflict resolution by showing them the posters and explaining what the kids in the images were doing. Once I understood the 3 steps, I read the book aloud and we talked about the pictures. I connected the cards to the book and explaining how the events in the book were parallel to the steps they had just learned. After finishing the book, I took out the sorting cards and explained the 2 categories. The children seemed to really enjoy figuring out what the images meant and sorting them into the categories. To wrap up my lesson, I revisited the posters I had shared, and the children did really well remembering what I had taught them. My second experience teaching was at the much larger J. Whitson kindergarten class. The children were seated in front of me on the carpet, and I followed a similar flow of my first teaching experience. The main difference was the children were slightly more responsive than the preschoolers and gave very accurate examples of conflicts they had experienced. As part of my follow-up step, I asked the teachers of both classes I had taught to take a short survey about the lessons and the importance of conflict resolution. Both teachers expressed how important they feel conflict is, and they said that one teacher said she is constantly mediating arguments and disagreements, saying that earlier children learn to navigate their own conflicts, the better. Both teachers complimented me on my lesson and activities. They said that they feel the visual cards really help the children understand the steps of conflict resolution and keep them engaged throughout the lesson. Both teachers also expressed that they will be reinforcing my lesson and the steps I taught. As I look at my project in the rearview mirror, I can say I believe it was a great choice, as this lesson is important to all age groups. As mentioned before, preschoolers are adjusting to school and making new friends, and kindergartners are a similar age and slightly more receptive, as they were a bit older and experienced with conflict. I do wish I was able to revisit the classroom I visited a second time to reinforce my lesson. Personally, I have grown so much as a person, public speaker, and child care worker through this experience, and I have constantly challenged myself to move out of my lane. First, by committing to speak in front of people, both here and in the classroom, and second, by corresponding with the preschool teachers and guidance counselors. I also gained more experience working with children and helping them grow. But now, back to our story about Jane, you, and the crossing guard. As the cars drive by, the crossing guard reminds you and Jane how important friends are, and to not let this conflict ruin your friendship. She encouraged you to yield and talk out with each other and choose the best solution. You and Jane talk and agree to take turns every other day sitting by the window. When the crossing guard moves back to the road, now holding her stop sign to the oncoming traffic, allowing you and Jane and the other children to safely cross the street to the bus. Now that seems like a successful crossing of Conflict Street, if you ask me. Thank you. Now to answer the evaluator's questions. Self-confidence in my ability to speak in front of others is a skill that I have greatly improved upon during and throughout my project. And it will equip me as I go through college and future careers to work closely with others. An obstacle that has caused a challenge as I worked on my project was working out times to teach my lessons at various schools, and it was solved by being allowed to go during school hours.